What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 1 of Packers Latest. I am your host, Taylor Bretl, and if you're finding this channel for the first time, which I assume you are as this is episode 1, feel free to subscribe, leave a like, turn on the notification bell. Really want to build a strong community among Green Bay Packers fans. But also, in finding this episode, it is probably because you just watched what I had to watch on that Monday Night Football loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. And yeah, that is going to be a game to forget for many reasons, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it, should not break down what went right and what a lot of things were that went wrong and how the Packers can adjust from that in weeks to come this season. But once more, I am your host, Taylor Bretl, and feel free to even leave a comment, anything you saw in this game or any frustration you just want to release. Feel free to drop it down below. I'll read all of them, maybe even respond to a couple of you. But we cannot shy away from the main takeaway from this game, and it is what is the concern level with Matt LaFleur. There has been Matt LaFleur hot seat talks in previous seasons, especially not being able to get the Packers to a Super Bowl. This season, looking strong to start it, 5-1-1. Now they've lost 2 straight games. I would say entering this game, the hot seat was at around a 6 out of 10. I'll bump that up 2 points after this one to an 8. I mean, there's just so much wrong with this game, especially after last week's loss to the Carolina Panthers in a game you're favored by 13 points, and you only score 13 points, losing that one 16-13 at home, and you follow it up with this, with an even worse offensive performance than what last week I thought was the bottom. And you're 6 feet under with this offense almost. You are below the surface, and it is ugly. The play calling Matt LaFleur is putting together is not working. I don't know if there's some issues with him or Jordan Love, but if you think about when Aaron Rodgers was here, obviously this is a 4-time MVP. Aaron Rodgers, easy Hall of Famer, one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. Little bit of a different scenario than a young quarterback like Jordan Love, but Aaron Rodgers would maybe rip at Matt LaFleur, say, I'm going to take it into my own hands, call some plays. This Love and LaFleur connection, I don't know what it is, but clearly not on the same page, and it doesn't feel like Love can give that oomph. Obviously, you're a younger quarterback, and you maybe don't have the passion to do that than like Rodgers did, but he doesn't seem to give that oomph on like, you know what, LaFleur, I'm going to take it from here. Or even vice versa. They don't really seem to be talking much and like trying to figure out this offense. It seems like they're both in their own worlds, and it's just frustrating to watch, and you can tell there's frustration between them. You look on the bench, they're not really talking to each other. Jordan Love's just kind of sitting there by himself. LaFleur's looking at, a tablet or his play sheet, trying to change some calls, not talking about it with Love. They're both on different ends of the bench. I don't know what is going on there, but that's a whole story in its own. I'm not going to try to start any rumors. I'm just speaking on what I saw on my television, and that is what I saw. Lots of concerns there, but you know what? Maybe it's just the shots that the ESPN crew was getting, and I'm interpreting it wrong. But there is something interesting about that relationship on when things aren't working like it is right now. They don't seem to be going together to try to fix it. It just seems like it keeps spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. But got to get into some numbers for this. You look at Matt LaFleur, especially let's go to the first half. I know it was 0-0 at halftime, but that means that there are 0 points for the Green Bay Packers at halftime of a football game. Granted, you're playing the Eagles, who are one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL right now, but you're at home, it's prime time, it's a must-win game, and you have 0 points at halftime. Just 45 points scored in the first half over the last 7 games, and just 29 over their last 5. That is not going to win you a football game. Obviously, they've won a couple within that stretch, as this is just their 3rd loss in the season. But that cannot happen. You cannot be entering the second halves tied like tonight, but tied with 0 points or trailing, or if you're leading, you're barely leading. I mean, let's go to the last win that the Packers had against the Steelers. They were trailing that one by 9. Obviously pulled out that game, but they were losing 16-7 at halftime. And they just can't get things going. Again, I don't mean to go back in the Rodgers days, but how many times with LaFleur and Rodgers, it would seem like they'd score on the first drive every time. They'd jump out of the gate quick. And I know this is Love and this is a different team, but we've seen it with Love as well, even in his first season as a starter. This offense would get going quick. Now it is stalling more than ever. I saw another post. I saw this on X per Scott Grodsky. He said in this game, the Packers made it to at least their own 43-yard line on every single drive, which were 10 total possessions for Green Bay. And they scored just 7 points off of that. Obviously, this is their own 43, so that's not flipping the field. But you're basically halfway there, and you score 7 points within that. It's just not acceptable. It's not how you're going to win a football game. And there's only 2 score attempts, I guess you say, within that, however I want to word that, with the possible game tying field goal at the end. That was not even close from Brandon McManus, respectfully. Obviously had to really put something into that and kick it low to even get it there because it was a 64-yarder. But that was the only attempt they had. They tried to go for it on 4th down, which I'll touch in a little bit with these wide receiver drops, and nothing was working there either. It was just ugly, ugly, ugly. The Packers, 3 losses now this season, all by 3 points. 13-10 of the Browns, 16-13 of the Panthers, 10-7 of the Eagles. Pretty similar trend in all of those outside of the 3-point losses. They are all low-scoring affairs. I mean, this defense has played great. Obviously, some shaky games. The tie, 40 points in that one. That was a mess in its own. But in these 3 losses, the defense is doing what they should. If you tell me they gave up 13 points to the Cleveland Browns, 16 to the Carolina Panthers, and 10 to the Eagles, I would tell you I expect them to be 3-0, at worst 2-1, and they're 0-3 within those games. And again, this goes back especially to the play calling. I don't know what LaFleur is trying to find or change or just stick with something old. I don't know what it is, but it's not working, and it's got to change. But I can talk about this all episode long, but we got to transition into the next point and how this wide receiving room has not been pretty. Obviously, lots of injuries, but tonight it was the drops. My gosh, it was the drops. An issue that the Packers had in previous seasons, especially last season. I believe they had the highest drop percentage in the NFC and second in the NFL behind just the New York Jets, but I might double check that after this, but I'm pretty confident that's where they sat on that list. This season, it looks like all those drops were resolved, especially for guys like Dontavian Wicks, who had a lot of them. He's been hurt the last 2 games, came back in this one. Solid performance besides 1 drop, but this Packers receiving core could not hang on to a football. I highlighted a couple of key drops here to go through. I mean, there was one back-to-back plays. You go in the 3rd quarter, 3rd and 9, Packers had the ball on the Eagles' 41, where Dobbs dropped what was going to be about a 20-yard completion and an easy 1st down. Obviously, he's laying out a little bit for it, but that's a drop in its own. Jordan Love tries to follow it up the next play to Bo Melton, who that one was right in his chest, hit off the chest, hit a little bit off the hands, maybe ticked off the face mask, and that was a drop for Bo Melton. What would have been about a 15-yard completion on 4th and 9 to advance the drive, and that is a turnover on downs for the Packers. You go to the 4th quarter, 2nd and 10. This is when Green Bay has the ball more on their own side of the field. But 2nd and 10, Green Bay has it on their 35. Dontavian Wicks dropped a 21-yard pass. It was a little high, I will say, but he got 2 hands on that football. You got to come down with it. If you're getting 2 hands on that football and the defender near you does not have one of those 2 hands on it, they are both yours. You just have to come down with that football. And I will give Dontavian Wicks credit. He had many catches in this game for the few that there really were. He played a great game, truly has worked on holding on to the football, but that was a crucial drop. But that also leads me into the health of this receiving room. I mean, they are not healthy. They entered this game not that healthy. Matthew Golden was ruled out right before the game with a shoulder issue, which I know was lingering news, but it got confirmed before the game. On Monday, you look at Romeo Doubs. He was removed from this game with a chest injury. Didn't seem to take a hit to it, but granted, it was cold, and that's a lot of chest injuries happen in that way. It seemed like he just ran a route and kind of just had to walk off the field. But man, Doubs was in there a lot, only had 1 catch, but he was out there basically every single play. So he worked his tail off, even though it only resulted in 1 catch, and unfortunately had to be removed with that. You have Jaden Reed, who's been out since week 2 after injuring himself on what was initially a touchdown and then did not count as a touchdown, and it obviously ended up not mattering since it wasn't a touchdown, and he got a broken collarbone on it. Very, very bad play, about as bad as it can get in that week 2 game against the Commanders. You have Tucker Kraft, who tore his ACL last week against the Carolina Panthers. I know he's a tight end, but you could arguably say he's the best receiver on the team. Romeo Doubs is the only Packer with more catches than him, and then Tucker Kraft leads the Packers in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. He's out for the season. So this receiving core / tight end core, however you want to group it, it is injured. I mean, it got to a point tonight where Josh Jacobs was almost the wide receiver one in this receiving room. You look at the receiving room right now. Christian Watson had been out most of the season after his injury last year in Week 18 against the Bears. He came back a couple games ago. He got 2 catches in this one, and he is the guy leading the way with if Doubs is out for more than just this game. Obviously, in episodes to come this week, we'll get more information on that. But you got Dontavian Wicks, who I mentioned. Malik Heath is starting to sneak in there, who's always on this Packers roster, but really just gets playing time if they are injured like they are now. Bo Melton, receiver, turned cornerback, turned back to receiver because they really needed him. Savion Williams, rookie, very solid player. He's starting to get a little bit more time. And then you got Luke Musgrave, who's taking the main tight end role in place of Tucker Kraft. But so many injuries in this receiving room, and just tons of drops, a lot of things to clean up. But with the receivers, there's obviously someone throwing him the football, and that is Jordan Love. Love had an all right game, finished 20 of 36, 176 yards. He didn't have an interception, but he didn't have any touchdowns. Obviously, with a 10-7 final, just 1 touchdown in that game, and it was a rush from Josh Jacobs. But Jordan Love could have easily probably gone 25 of 36. I got to go back and count how many drops there truly were. But there was, I mentioned 3 big ones here. There were probably about 2 others as well. But Love overall, I have this as Love struggles with Philadelphia pressure all game, and I think that title is very, very true because when you go into the numbers, when Love was pressured in Monday's game, he had 11 dropbacks, got sacked 3 times, and was 0 for 6. He did not have a single completion when he was pressured, and that was very present. And we go back to talking about Tucker Kraft and why he's out for the season. That obviously hurts in the receiving room because Love doesn't have someone to throw to. But that also hurts in the blocking. You saw this Eagles defense was just rushing the house on this Packers offensive line, and Love was still patient in the pocket, but too patient. It resulted right before the second half, collapsed on him. He fumbled the football, ugly play. Lots of other times, obviously, not completing a single pass where it was just an ugly, ugly result when he got pressured. Lots to clean up there. That's some on the offensive line. That's some on Jordan Love. Showed a lot of replays in that game where Love missed a guy that was open because he's sitting in the pocket just a little bit too long, trying to get it to someone else. But another thing that needs to be cleaned up, which takes us to our final point of the episode. And where does Green Bay go from here? And man, I don't really know how to answer that question right now. You got the Giants as their next game up. This is a team that just fired their head coach, and their starting quarterback in Jackson Dart got a concussion in their recent game that they lost to the Chicago Bears, who are 6-3, by the way. And Dart, with the concussion, who knows if he'll play? Again, more episodes to follow this week. I'll keeping you guys posted on his status, because if he's not in there, it'll be Russell Wilson. And it's just something that you got to track. The Packers are touchdown favorites in this game. Giants, no head coach now. You're going to have an interim and possibly no starting quarterback. If there was ever a game to get back on track, it's this one. But with how they've played, especially offensively, I wouldn't be shocked if they find a way to drop this. But that's not trying to be negative. That's just with what you've seen on the field. The defense has been great. I think this defense can hold this Giants team to barely double digits. But it's just, can the offense show up? And another guy that the Packers need to show up with what's next is Brandon McManus. Seemed like last season the Packers finally found their kicker. They signed McManus to a sizable deal. Over his last 3 games, 4 for 8 on field goals and 1 for 5 in that 3-game span when kicking from 40 plus. Obviously, one of those 5 was a 64-yard attempt at the end of the game, which the expectations to make that were not there. But still, these misses, these are the little things that you have to clean up. But tons and tons and tons more to come over the next couple of days. Lots of things that need to be cleaned up. Maybe the offensive play calls will be changed. Maybe someone else will be calling them. I don't know. Not trying to step too far ahead, but there will be lots of talks around Matt LaFleur and his hot seat. but we can only see where that will go after today. But that's all I got for this episode. I appreciate you guys tuning in to the very first of many episodes of Packers Latest. And even after a loss, as always, go Pack, go.